Welcome to Admissions Chat with Project Success. I'm Kaya, and today we are connecting with Myra at the University of Illinois at Chicago with our special guest host from Project Success, Mark.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mark. I'm a facilitator over at Roosevelt High School, and I also serve as one of the workshop managers here at Project Success. And I'm excited to be here today.
Thank you, Mark. Mark's going to be asking questions based on student input at the end of this video, but first we're going to start off with our introduction and admissions information from Myra.
Hi everyone, thanks so much for joining us. My name is Mayra Lagunas. I am the Associate Director for the Visitor Center for the University of Illinois at Chicago, and I'm so happy to be here and answer any questions that I possibly can. I understand my contact information is going to be provided, and I welcome you to reach out. When I do these introductions, I typically like to share a little bit about myself so you know who it is sharing information with you. I am a first-generation student, or I was a first-generation student, so I was the first family to go to college. As such, my college experience was significantly, vastly different than what is typical, and so I sometimes overcompensate by oversharing information, just because I know that there's certain things that seem so obvious in the college search process that sometimes are not, given different experiences and different situations. So in light of being first generation, there's a lot of things that I focus on in terms of the experience, right? Typically, I like to provide information about the University of Illinois at Chicago I think in the context of fit. We tend to talk about match often, in match being how students might fit in academically, GPA, ACT, test scores, things like that. But I think for the University of Illinois at Chicago, it's so important to consider fit. And fit is everything outside of academics. Fit is the culture, fit is the environment, fit is academics and its research. And so when I frame UIC, I like to talk about it in the 5 pillars that are UIC. And the first pillar is Chicago. We are in the Chicagoland area, which means that there's a vast amount of opportunities to engage with internships, engage with different activities and opportunities around the city, going to cultural centers, going to museums. Our students at UIC actually receive a U-Pass, which enables them to get on public transportation. The L, which is really popular here in Chicago, which is the elevated train. And you can go as far north of the city as you're interested in south, and you can go west. We are really about a 15-minute walk from the Loop, which is the downtown area in Chicago. And a lot of our students are coming from everywhere in the country and everywhere in the state and everywhere in the city. We are really smack in the middle of Chicago, which means that we're surrounded by neighborhoods like Little Italy. We're surrounded by Pilsen, which is a historically or predominantly Mexican community, and you can find really wonderful culture and arts. So Chicago is the first pillar of UIC, and I think it's a very notable one. Another pillar is academic excellence here on our campus. We do offer opportunities for students to study a broad range of different types of majors housed within different colleges. And so back to my first generation experience a little bit, when we talk about majors and programs of study in colleges, we tend to use terms interchangeably, though often they can mean similar things or very different things depending on the institution that we're representing. At UIC, we've got a couple of different colleges within the university as a whole. So one of our admission reps likes to point it out like different houses of Hogwarts, or the different houses within Hogwarts, right? So you've got University of Illinois, which is Hogwarts. And then you've got the colleges, which are Hufflepuff and are Slytherin. And so we've got colleges that represent different departments and majors. We have some of the best programs in education. We've got wonderful opportunities in engineering and business. But I think one of the more, present opportunities within academics is the ability to participate in interdisciplinary studies. And what that means is that our students are absolutely learning to be experts in their particular majors that they select, like civil engineering or the arts, but they also have an opportunity to cross-reference each other. So engineering students don't just have to take math and science classes. Engineering students take rhetoric courses. They take courses in the social sciences. They take courses in speech, because we want our students, once they graduate, to be able to integrate in larger work scale places. And that sort of follows what the environment and the third pillar of UIC is. That is diversity. On our campus, you're going to not just find a range of diverse populations in terms of race and ethnicity, but we've got representation of different experiences, geographical variances in representation. A significant amount of our students are commuter students because we don't require students to live on our campus. And so those experiences bring in a range of different perspectives into a classroom setting, into research, and into everything that we do. Research, incidentally, is our fourth pillar. So research itself, 17-year-old Myra, again, first generation student, thought of research in a lab coat and a microscope, right? Research can be so many different things, and through having gone through college, I got a chance to participate in some of it. It can be researching your favorite author and understanding their lifestyle, learning about the Latino presence in US literature, or it can mean understanding how certain, I'm not even going to pretend to know biological and chemical terms, but how those things can impact water systems and communities surrounding. So research is I think one of the important pillars of the UIC community as well. And then to condense it and to end it, it's the fifth pillar, and it's the one that brings really everything together for us. That fifth pillar is social good. And in everything that we do, Chicago, that is one, research, in academics, in diversity, all of it is intended with the fulfillment of social good. How do all of those aspects of UIC integrate with our surrounding neighborhoods and communities? How do we expand the world through diversity, through community engagement, through the type of research opportunities that are interesting to us, through our programs of study? We've got students who've been able to pitch like Shark Tank ideas to some of our researchers, and those are intended to better the educational system within Chicago Public Schools, which is the third largest education district in the country. And we've got students doing that through their process of becoming teachers and receiving certification to teach. So there's a lot of opportunities on our campus to engage, but if there's one way that I would really say enables a student to get all of those things, to look for fit, it's to find what we are offering in terms of resources. What type of student comes to UIC? There's over 4,000 colleges and universities in the country, and the chance that students are going to find a good fit in more than one is very high. It is extremely high. But I think that the most wonderful part of UIC is that we're pretty clear about what we offer. If you're looking for a public institution, this is a great option. If you're looking to engage in research opportunities, UIC is a great option for you. And if at the core of everything, social justice and social good are themes in your life which you want to continue to pursue, I think UIC is a really good option. I'm happy to take any questions though.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing, Myra. I have lots of questions that have been kind of generated by students over the past couple of weeks, and I'm just going to run through a few with you if that's okay.
Sounds good.
Cool. So the first one is kind of something you were actually just speaking on, but I wanted maybe to give you an opportunity to expand on it a little bit more. That kind of fifth pillar of social good and social justice, I think that's something that maybe sets you apart in a lot of ways from a lot of the other kind of bigger public institutions. What are some other things that maybe set UIC apart from those kind of other big public institutions?
Yeah. So I'm a full disclosure, I am currently a student of UIC. And so I get to see it from a very, I think, unique lens. My undergraduate studies were done at our sister campus, University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. But as a student now, I get to see everything as a different perspective than an administrator. And I think one of the things that sets us apart is everyone here is truly looking to connect with students and find a way to connect them with the larger campus. So it's not just, you sign up for your classes and you go to your classes separately. It's advisors and professors both reaching out and saying, hey, I noticed that maybe you weren't in class, or I noticed that you submitted this at a different time, this project or this assignment at a different time. How can we connect? How can I help your experience? That is part of the collaboration between our offices on campus that say, the student has a touch point here that they may be saying that they are interested in tutoring. Can we offer anything else through the library? And having, I think, a well-versed resource of different opportunities for our students and engaging them and connecting them to it make us a very unique campus. It's a big field because it's a big campus, but you can find, there's always someone you can find within an office to say, hey, I need you to point me in the right direction, and we can do that.
Cool. Even with the two colleges that you mentioned there, I think one big difference obviously is that UIC is right in the city. And there's lots of really cool things about that, but there also could be potentially some safety things. So I was just wondering, based on one of the questions over here, what does UIC kind of do to ensure safety on campus?
Yeah, so we've got a couple of different features, and I love watching our student panels when we have them talk about what their experiences have been like, because a lot of people tend to think, oh, Chicago, oh, everything we hear on the news. But there's actually the Clery Act, which enables students, and they should use this feature to figure out all of the different campus safety issues that pop up. Universities are required to produce these. So you can always find a listing of any issues that have related to safety that have happened on campus and access that information. But for us, we have UIC police. We've got them present on campus. We have blue lights that students can hit really everywhere on campus. And when you hit one of those blue lights, it begins to track and have police there as soon as they possibly can be, typically within the minute. We've got safe walks, which enable students to find a virtual escort or a police escort from point A to point B. We've got a UIC Safety Campus app, which students can sign up for and can request at any point in time to press a trigger on that app that it sends a message to the UIC police that their safety is maybe compromised, and we'll send somebody out to ensure that they're okay. A lot of it is what I typically say to any student considering really any campus, ensuring that the students are commonsensical about, walking alone late at night or leaving things out in the open. But as many other campuses, we take our student safety pretty seriously. Students receive alerts with anything that happens around campus and anything that happens on any of our campuses. We've got the west side, the west campus, we've got the east campus, and then we've got a south campus as well.
Cool. Another really great feature of your school, obviously, is that it's in the city, right? And our students are mostly coming from Minneapolis, which is a fairly large city for our region, but obviously nothing in comparison to how big Chicago really is. So I guess my next question is, what kind of advice would you have for somebody kind of moving into Chicago or kind of moving from a different environment into Chicago? Like what can they do to adjust, or what kind of advice would you have?
Yeah, I think engage with excitement. Everyone is ready to move to a new city, right? And start to go and explore. And I think explore is absolutely the word that I would recommend for students. Do not be afraid to Google how to use the CTA. Do not be afraid to figure out how to load your Venture card. But know that there's always going to be somebody on campus, like the Commuter Resource Center or the Wellness Center, that can make recommendations as well. So outside of exploring on your own, just jumping on the red line and seeing how far north it goes, or jumping on the pink line to see how far west it goes, really engaging the resources that we have on campus to say, there's already a group going to do a crawl of all of the museums around Chicago on Saturday. Let's do that. And then, just asking for recommendations from local neighborhoods. Chicago is such a hub for diversity and cultural diversity at that. And you can find so many things within proximity to campus.
Nice. You mentioned a little bit of this, and I want to maybe have you expand on it. That UIC, like you were saying, there are a decent amount of commuter students. What are some of the things that UIC does on its campus to kind of build community? Kind of with people coming from all sorts of different walks and different cities and different states, like you were saying, like how can you kind of, what do you do to build that community at UIC?
I would say a good portion of our classes are actually scheduled between the morning period, what is typically like 8:30 to like 5 p.m. And so a lot of our students are on campus during those times, but we have so many clubs and activities on our campus There's a running list, and I like to check it every so often. You know, there's the people who like to all find Pokemon together on our campus. Pokemon Go is still a thing at UIC. But it really engaging in the after school extracurricular activities, and there's a lot of places on our campus as well to find employment. We have at the visitor center the student corps, and our student corps is comprised about 40 to 50 students who give tours of campus. So participating and engaging on campus doesn't just have to be academic. It could be through social clubs, or it could be through work opportunities, or even internships. We do, as I mentioned earlier, have research opportunities as well, and those vary in timeframes. And so in any opportunity we get to engage students to stay on campus or to help develop our student government, we offer.
Cool. What kind of, this is another question from a student, what kind of advantages or disadvantages do you see that UIC has to do specifically with its size, right? Because it is a larger campus than some of the other schools that we kind of visit in that area. What are some of the advantages or disadvantages of kind of the size of UIC?
Yeah, so I would say, having gone to a large school myself, but outside of the city, it can be very overwhelming. It can be overwhelming to approach people as a young person and to say like, hey, who wants to be my friend? and I mean, it's overwhelming as an adult, but it is very overwhelming to be in a new environment and try to, you know, make friends. And so I think one of the advantages is that we have structured student organizations, and we tend to provide that information about the meeting when there'll be opportunities to engage through social media and through email and otherwise, so that our students are able to find maybe their group, their niche on campus. I think the disadvantages of large campuses are that, right? That you feel like you're one of so many, that you feel like you're going to get lost within classes. A lot of that is, you know, it's going to be, it sort of falls individually on the student. Engage your professor. You may be in a class that is very large, 100, 200 students. But I think having conversations about what your fears are and what your expectations are with somebody maybe who's gone through this process would be a very, very helpful thing to be able to do. I know sometimes questions seem very silly. I remember thinking that commuting was not even going to be or was going to be the only option for me, and then finding out that I had to live on campus and not knowing even where to begin to monitor that process or ask for housing. But I think having students engage us and ask us those questions, knowing that we've received every question under the sun, and not being shy. We say there are no such things as stupid questions, and we really mean that. We've received every type of question you can imagine, and we understand that this may be a completely new process for some students. But in terms of size of an institution, I think all the concerns that typically fall under size, I'm going to be one of many. No one's really going to have, I'm not going to have an individual experience in a classroom. You're going to find those at large schools, you're going to find them at small schools, but finding a way to make the culture, finding a way to connect and collaborate with folks, I think is a recommendation that I would provide to students. Cool. But being realistic as well, we are a big institution, so you will have some classes that are fairly big. On the other hand, as you continue to go through the years into your sophomore, junior, senior years, and classes get smaller and smaller, you're going to find that there are different advantages and disadvantages. A professor will notice when there's 7 students in a class and one doesn't show up.
Sure, that makes sense. Cool, that was a great answer. One question that I had that I think would give you an opportunity to talk about something interesting and different is, what's like a favorite part of UIC that maybe you wouldn't be able to tell by just visiting the website, or what's something unique to UIC that's kind of weird or fun or interesting that you're if I was just searching the website, it wouldn't necessarily pop up at me, but when you are there, you're like, oh, that's super cool, or yeah.
I am a history buff, and there's a lot of really cool things on campus that people would just not know about, like the entire history of the construction of UIC itself. there was overpasses over the entire campus, and some of the columns that were used to hold up that structure are now used in some of the buildings. So they incorporated those structures when they tore it down. There's actual bunkers underneath UIC for panics during World War II that people wouldn't know about. And there's actually, I will provide links for these. If any student is curious, they can email me and I'll share them. But there was a student who went in, they're all locked now. There's a student who went in and documented this YouTube video of all of the things that they found in those bunkers. So there's like really old cans in there and really old food items in there.
I'm happy I asked. That's such a unique answer that I feel like wouldn't be true for a lot of other places. Cool. I think I'm going to ask just one final question, if that's all right with you.
Yeah,
and this is something that we kind of try to ask everyone, but what is one general piece of advice that you would have for our Project Success high school students that will be watching this? What's one piece of advice? You've recently gone through some of these things. What's one piece of advice you'd give them?
There's so much advice. As you get older, you start to become your parent. And as you become your parent, you hear yourself saying some of the things that a 17-year-old you was like, you don't know what you're talking about, Mom. So part of my advice is to keep open lines of communication. I think that that's the most helpful one. I'll tell you again from the lens of a first-generation student, I remember wanting to go as far away from home as I possibly could, and then being far away from home and only wanting to be home, and could not bring myself to communicate the struggles I was having with my parents about maybe I wasn't so sure how to use my dining credits, and so I went without eating one night, right? Because I didn't know who to ask, and I was afraid to ask and afraid to have people judge me and afraid to have people question why I was in college if I didn't know how to utilize all these systems. Imposter syndrome is something that I would encourage students to look up, to have conversations about. It's so real. But understanding that you work so hard to get into the colleges that you get into. And there's a part of it that should feel selfish. Like, that's your time to learn about yourself, to learn about everything under the sun, to question, to challenge, and to experience. So do not forget about the fun parts of this process. Enjoy, in any other circumstances, enjoy visiting campuses, not now, social distancing, but in any other instances, enjoy the experience of going through this process. We'll keep open lines of communication. And then I think the last one I will say is that there's no traditional pathway. And I wish we would talk about this a lot more as professionals, as we make recommendations for students, right? There's no one traditional pathway. Students, if they choose to pursue a college or university education, should know that community college is an absolute pathway. Transferring after a first year, a second year, even a third year, changing majors is okay. So many of us have done all of these things in pursuit of a college education and college degree, and it's okay. There's no one right way to do this. So just be sure that you communicate and keep open lines of communication with those of us who want to advocate for you and support you, so that we can know how to best support you.
That's really great advice, and something that we also talk about a lot here is about this idea of there's no one definition for success, right? And there's no one definition for what it needs to look like. And so really, thank you so much, Myra, for sharing today. It's awesome.
No problem. And I'm always open if students want to reach out about any of the weird things I've said today with questions, or if they'd like more advice. I'm just full of advice.
Thank you so much, Myra and Mark, for chatting with us. If you want follow-up information about the University of Illinois at Chicago or UIC after this video, check out our webpage at www.projectsuccess.org/college tours for links and contact information, as well as any updates we have for Project Success College and Career Tours. Again, thank you so much, and I hope everyone has a lovely rest of their day. So thank you.